Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rob Van Reel, and our host and his lovely wife, Roland and Jenny Martinez, would like you to please come down to this area so we can have more of an informal, intimate meeting with the future governor of the state of California, right? Our good friend, John Cox. But first, here's Roland Martinez and Jenny.
First of all, I am so happy that you folks came. I can't express how happy that Jenny and I are that we came for the cause for John Cox. To maybe a portion of you people, we had a fund here about a month ago. And the fund basically was for education. And a lot of people don't really realize that we see right now that's happened on commercials that we're number 46 in the state. And guess what? It looks like we want to race to the bottom. And it's absolutely disturbing for the powerhouse of our state for that to happen in our education system. And the reason why we felt this way and being honored to go ahead and host this for John Cox, because that's one of his foundations, or his foundation, the fundamentals of having an educational process. And, you know, we discussed that among many others for our state. Some of you that I sent some emails were a little bit personal, and I took my time out. And I let everybody know that, you know, we're going to take Newsom down. And I expressed this by a simple fact, and I've talked to a few people here as of 2 days ago, that Donald Trump has raised $106 million versus Obama at this point in time was $4.2 million and Bush $3.3 million. What it really tells everybody in this room that we're the silent majority. We all voted for, Trump. I'd like everybody to stand up, and I want everybody to shake each other's hands right now, and I'll tell you why. Okay? Everybody, you're not in church, but go ahead and do that. You got to shake their hand, John. Okay? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, folks, if you want to stay standing, that's fine. Now we know the word is we're among friends. We know that. Everybody have that. And it's kind of crazy, that comment that I first heard. It says, it's okay, we're among friends. And I started looking, I go, you're right. Every one of us had some form of confrontation from the other side. It's absolutely terrible, and we know what's happened. They expect us to roll over. We're not. And everything is demonstrated that we're strong. And what the comment that I made earlier about what Trump has raised is exactly how we feel, us as Americans, I guess people of the state of California. I wanted to trademark the name and maybe capitalize it, but I was going to go ahead and present it to, John Cox and said, bring it back. But don't steal it, all right? I am so happy that everybody's come or came here. Just as the event, I want everybody to have a great time, but the cause is very sincere that what we have. We want it all is to go ahead and spread the word. Pass it along. We'll go ahead and win it. And anything in that email that I said, we'll close on the other guy like a freight train. And the other thing is, I said, we want to make John Cox feel like he's Rocky Balboa. We want to feel like a champion, and we want a winner. And that's what we want. I forgot who I was going to introduce, so Jenny will do it.
Hi, I just want to say thank all of you for coming in such short notice and everybody who helped get you here. There's many of you. And we will plan on having a congratulatory win. And we'll have another event, okay? Everybody's invited, which should be very soon, right? And I would like to announce the chairman of the GOP, Jan Leja. There you go.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us this evening. This is beautiful. Hi, my name is Jan Leja. I'm the county chair for the Republican Party for San Bernardino County. Thank you so much for coming out this evening to support John Cox, the next governor of California. Now, before we continue on, I do want us all to take a moment with a moment of silence to pray for, to honor those who lost their lives today, who were injured, who were affected by the shooting earlier today. If you would, at this time, just take a moment of silence. Thank you. The other thing I've been told I'm supposed to do today is introduce a few folks who are with us this evening. We have Assemblyman Mark Steinorth, who is currently a candidate for Rancho Cucamonga City Council. Ryan Hutchinson, candidate for Rancho Cucamonga City Council. Yvette Walker, also a candidate for Upland City Council. Do we have any other candidates? Oh, okay. They want you guys to come up so that they can see what you look like. I've always told people that the political process is like a beauty pageant. So let's bring them up for swimsuit competition at this point. No, come on up. This is Ryan Hutchinson, candidate for Rancho Cucamonga City Council, one of our young guns and up-and-comers. Yvette Walker, come on up. Yvette Walker, who's also a candidate for Upland City Council. And I had the pleasure of interviewing her recently, and she is an endorsed candidate by the county party, as well as Ryan. So good to see you. I think Mark had to leave to go to another event. Otherwise, he would be up here, too, and he would take the microphone away from me. But anyhow, we have some great folks up and down the ticket. It's not just John Cox, but we are building a bench at the local level that is amazing. And you're going to see more from both of these young people as well as some of the other candidates that we have throughout the county. We're very excited about what's happening with our county party. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Regina Santamaria. Those of you who have contacted the Upland headquarters, a few folks tonight have indicated that you would like to volunteer. Let me tell you what's happening. For us to elect John Cox, we need to turn out Republicans like never before, especially here in San Bernardino County. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens by hard work. So if you're interested, we always need volunteers. We always need help from various other ways. But we're going to be calling folks nonstop between Monday and election night. We're not stopping until the polls close. So if you have an hour or 2 hours that you'd like to commit to the cause, because we want to turn out Republicans in San Bernardino County to elect John Cox, our next governor. Thanks, guys. And one of the things that I do at every meeting that I preside over, but I'm not actually presiding, but they gave me the microphone tonight, so that's a mistake. But this is not. One reason why we're in the arena, one reason why we have this benefit, this opportunity to vote, is because of the men and women who have served our country and continue to serve our country. I met one gentleman, John, who's here tonight, who's a Naval Academy grad. He's right over there. Even though my husband's an Air Force Academy grad, that's okay. But if you are a member of the United States military, if you have protected us and served us, would you please raise your hands so that we can thank you? Like I said, I'm excited about what the next few days are going to bring to us because we have a lot of work to do in this state. And the next person I'm going to introduce has been really working hard for the Inland Empire as well as for this state for a number of years. Many of you know him, but this time I'm going to introduce State Senator Mike Morrell.
Well, how are you guys doing? Good. Well, it's good to be here. Hold on, let me reword that. It's great to be out of Sacramento and here with people who are normal. So thank you very much. You guys have heard the saying, as California goes, so goes the nation. Is that right? That's true. A couple of things. Number one, we've had friends that say they want to leave the state, and other people have left the state. Do you guys know people who have done that? Since when do good business owners and people of faith, why do we run, ladies and gentlemen? California, I am convinced, is the battleground for the soul of America. We have to draw the line in the sand, plant that flag, and we need to make sure people like Gavin Newsom leave, not us. Wouldn't you agree with that? So a couple of things. The number one question that I've been asked for the last 2 years, it's the only question up and down the state as I've been speaking, is there hope for California? My first 5 years up in Sacramento, I've had my doubts, but the last couple of years, I'm convinced there's something providential going on here. I could give you about 5 key leading indicators, but because of time, I'm going to give you one this evening. De Tocqueville in Democracy in America said what made America great was pastors got involved and encouraged their people in a political process. The last 60 or 7 years, some of these guys have been missing in action until 2 years ago. Here's what's happened. I was asked about 2 years ago to speak to 40 pastors up in Northern California, then 100 at a conference in Long Beach, then 200 in OC, and I think somewhere around 700 pastors I've spoken to. John was telling me just in the last couple of weeks he spoke in San Diego to 500 and 400 in Riverside yesterday. The pastor I go to a Calvary Chapel Church, Pastor Jack Hibbs, called and told me he spoke to 2,000 Hispanic pastors in L.A. 2 weeks ago, and this man's not shy. He's not worried about losing his 50C3 tax-deferred status. He's telling people how to vote. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe perhaps God is on the move in our state, and we have to work hard to make sure we bring Mr. John Cox across the line, because we are governed by consent, so really the heavy lifting needs to be by us. You see, and so I'm just grateful that you're here tonight. And again, to the Martinez's, thank you for sponsoring this. But let me just introduce John here for a minute. There's a couple of things we have in common. Number one, we both married up. His wife's not here tonight, or Sarah, or else you would know that. But my wife is, and for those of you who know me, you guys wouldn't argue with that, would you? But another thing that I've really grown to appreciate, because I got into politics sort of late in life, but I have an affection for people who own their own businesses, because I think they seem to make better choices in Sacramento compared to some of the people who came out of a big bureaucracy and all they want is more government, and eventually this socialistic state, we're going to run out of other people's money, and it's never worked. And so John, grew up in Chicago and put himself through college, then law school, then opened a successful business, and I really have a deep appreciation for that. And I don't have a deep appreciation for Gavin Newsom for a lot of reasons. Number one, when he says the pledge, and maybe he's going to stop doing this because maybe he's heard me comment on this, but he puts his hand over his stomach like he has a stomach ache, never over his heart. Maybe he's got nervous colon or something, right? But the second thing is, he wants this health care, and it's interesting, his little buddy, Senator Lara, said it's going to cost $400 billion a year. And then I asked Senator Lara, how are we going to pay for that? He says, well, we don't have that worked out yet. Now, remember, the state budget last year was $187 billion. This is going to be $400 billion a year, and they're submitting bills on this, but they just don't have the little fine-tune on how to pay for it. They're going to do it through your money and my money. So with that, we need somebody who's principled and who's going to be there to protect over the citizens. And John Cox ranks a citizen above the state. He's here to be a public servant, not the masters like we have in Sacramento. May I introduce to you the next governor of the state of California, John Cox.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you all. Thank you. And with your help, I will be the next governor of the state of California. I want to thank Mike. I want to thank Jan, all the
candidates who are here, but of course I also am going to make sure I extend just my humble, heartfelt, incredible gratitude to Roland and Jenny for what you've done to put this together. Thank you so much. A great big hand for Roland and Jenny and their son Reagan. And Roman is looking down on us right now. Proud of what you're doing, both of you, are what you're doing for this great state. And don't you love living in this wonderful state? I don't know about you, but I get up every morning and kiss the ground. I mean, this is the most wonderful place to live. And if we only had better political management, that's what's going to happen on November 6th, 10 days from now. 10 days from now, we are going to set off a political earthquake that's going to be heard around the world. Don't you just want to, I just talked to somebody, maybe Jan and I were discussing this, and set your DVRs to MSNBC. Because you want to see their heads explode on November 6th when a Republican businessman ends up being governor and turns this state around. Well, you need to understand who I am, and I appreciate Mike's introduction, but I wanted to give you a more full introduction of who I am and why I'm doing what I'm doing. I have a wonderful life. I've lived the American dream, and let me tell you, I won the lottery being born in this great country, just like all of us, right, or most of you who are born here. And all of you who have come here, because this country is the greatest country in the history of the world. And I'll tell you what, the idea that I'm doing this now is part of my contribution back to this great country for having been able to live that American dream, that liberty and that freedom gives us such a wonderful thing to live through. But you need to know my beginnings because, I'm one of those guys that started at the bottom, literally started at the bottom. My mom got her master's degrees here from Berkeley when you could afford to go to Berkeley. She came out from Chicago and she got 2 master's degrees at Berkeley. When she got her second master's degree in Spanish literature, she went down to Chile to teach illiterate children how to read and write. Spent a year there. This is a woman in the 40s who traveled down to South America to teach and give back to people. And that's what she instilled in me as a young man. She idolized John F. Kennedy. So did I. I used to imitate John F. Kennedy to thrill my mother. I was 6 years old and I was walking around the house saying, "Ask not what your country can do for you, what you can do for your country." She thought I sounded like JFK. I thought I sounded like Jimmy Cagney. But you know what? John F. Kennedy today would probably be a conservative Republican. I don't think he'd be welcome in the Democratic Party because he talked about what we can do for our country, not what our country is going to, not what government's going to do for us, but what we can do for our government. Well, my mom taught school in the Chicago public school systems, and that is why I'm involved in politics today. Because I saw what my mom went through on the south side of Chicago. I grew up, by the way, in Barack Obama's district while he was surfing in Hawaii. And I saw my mom literally beaten up by the principals that she had to deal with. I mean, they were horrible principals. They shouldn't have been in their jobs. But they got their jobs because they were friends of the alderman. And that's political corruption because those kids in that public school deserved better. They already had 2 strikes against them. And if you want to know why Chicago has 75 shootings and 15 murders every single weekend right now, I have 3 grown daughters that live there. I'm worried about them every day. It's because of that public school system has failed in its mission. Well, my mom retired to Fresno. She came back to California. The love of her life was in California. And She lived in Fresno. I moved out about 10 years ago. I always tell people it took me 50 years to save up enough money to buy a house here. And I discovered that California was even more messed up and corrupt than Illinois. Now, that's saying a lot. Because in Illinois, I don't know if you know this, but 4 out of the last 8 Illinois governors have ended up in federal housing. That's prison, in case you didn't know. As a matter of fact, if you ask an Illinois governor for his cell number, you're actually asking for his cell number. But that's why I'm running for governor now, because I was going to semi-retire. I was going to enjoy. I have a 13-year-old daughter. Yes, I've been mistaken for the grandfather. But I wanted to live my life in this wonderful state, and I discovered this corruption. I couldn't stay away. I couldn't, it just pulled me back in because this state is so wonderful. And, you know what this state used to be like, right? I mean, the best schools, the best roads, the best business climate, a low tax environment. And what do we have now? The highest poverty rate in the country. Our schools are 47th. Our business climate is number 50. 50 out of 50. I mean, can you believe it? We're worse than Mississippi. I mean, the homelessness on our streets is horrendous. They're talking about a typhus epidemic in Los Angeles. Is this 21st century Los Angeles, or is it 14th century London? You tell me. They're worried about the bubonic plague. Is this what the California that we want? Well, let me tell you. We deserve something better, and we are going to turn this state around. It starts on November 6th. And the first thing that we do on November 6th is we're going to repeal that gas tax. Let me tell you, that gas tax says all you need to know about how messed up this government is. And Mike, you've been fighting the battle there. But, Caltrans is one of the most mismanaged and corrupt agency in the country. Spends twice what Texas spends on a mile of road. Can you imagine that? If you're in business, could you spend twice what your competitors do and still stay in business? Could you? Not a chance. You'd be out of business in no time. But Caltrans exists. Why? Because the politicians, instead of reforming Caltrans, instead of making them efficient, what do? Well, that's too tough. They did the easy thing in their view. They stuck their hand in people's pockets, the forgotten Californians who are working every single day and are having to figure out how they're going to pay for groceries as well as their house. And they stuck their hand in their pocket and they raised this gas tax. Well, I'll tell you what, it's not going to stand. We're going to build a lot of roads. We're going to build a whole lot of roads, but we're going to do it efficiently, using your money wisely. And the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to build a lot more affordable houses. Now, that doesn't mean you don't make a house affordable by going into debt at the state level and handing out subsidies to people. That's not how you make things affordable. You make things affordable by bringing down the cost. Let me tell you something. I'm in the apartment business. I started this business 30 years ago. I manage and build apartments for a living. But I don't do it in California. Give me some credit for brains, okay? I build in Indiana, a relatively well-managed state. Thank you, Mike Pence and Mitch Daniels, right? Those governors, they knew what they were doing. And in Indiana, I can build a beautiful apartment for $90,000 a unit. What does that apartment cost around here? $300,000? $400,000? In the Bay Area, it's $600,000. Tell me, what is the difference there? I can get approvals in Indiana in 6 months. Now, is Indiana some kind of rural backwater that doesn't care what they build? Of course not. Indiana's a modern state. Indianapolis is the home of Purdue and Notre Dame, right? I mean, they've got world-class schools and universities, right? They just believe in not gumming up the works. What do we have in California? We have red tape, frivolous lawsuits, huge impact fees, taxes, as you know, right? And incredible delays. Well, let me tell you, we're going to cut through that red tape. We're going to reduce the taxes. We're going to get rid of the frivolous lawsuits. And we're going to bring down the cost of construction so that your children and mine can afford to buy a house in this state. And what you just heard is my 15-point plan. Gavin Newsom has a 15-point plan. And I guarantee you, every one of those 15 points is government going into debt and handing out money to somebody else. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to address the cause of the problem, not just paper over the symptoms. You understand the difference? Gavin Newsom doesn't. The other thing that we're going to do, I don't know if you realize this. And the ladies, my wife has rheumatoid arthritis, God love her, and she likes to take a bath every now and then, Epsom salts, and it helps her joints, okay? But, thanks to our wonderful state legislature, I'm sure Mike didn't vote for this, we are going to have water rationing beginning in 2022. Did you know that? You're used to using 109 gallons a day. That's the average indoor use for Californians. And the legislature is telling you that you're going to be limited to 55 gallons a day or it's going to be a $1,000 fine. Did you know that? You didn't know that, Jenny? No. I call this the Ritz-Carlton Act of 2018. You know why? Because if you're going to pay $1,000 for a bath, you might as well get a nice room out of it. So the Ritz-Carlton is going to build a lot more hotels, I guess. But isn't that ridiculous? We're sitting next to the largest body of water in the entire world, the Pacific Ocean, and we're sitting here worried about water rationing. Well, when I'm the governor of this state, we're going to build storage, we're going to build recycling, and we're going to desalinate water. Our poor farmers are scared to death of Gavin Newsom. I mean, they are literally scared to death. I mean, I've been up and down the Central Valley. I was just in Imperial Valley, yesterday. Our farmers, California is the nut, fruit, and vegetable bowl of the entire nation and actually the world. We have more cattle than Texas. We have more dairy than Wisconsin and Vermont combined. We produce more jobs and growth with agriculture than we do with Silicon Valley and Hollywood combined. Did you know that? That's because Silicon Valley and Hollywood have their executives live here, but they're building manufacturing everywhere else. They're not stupid. Well, we need to bring manufacturing back to California and treat it like it should be. Cut the regulations. I can't wait to audit Caltrans, DMV, and every single government agency. I didn't give you my full biography, but I'll tell you, as Mike said, I worked my way through college. I actually finished college in 2.5 years. You know why? Because I was paying for it. My daughters took 5 years. You know why? Because I was paying for it. Yes, thank you very much. But I got my CPA at 20 years old. Any other CPAs in the audience here? Yeah, there we go. I passed the first time, believe it or not. And I was a CPA, a young CPA at 20 years old. I worked as a CPA and went to law school at night and paid for it all myself. No debt, no scholarships, nothing. I grew up without a father. My real father took one look at me and left. His loss, as far as I'm concerned. And that's one of the reasons I'm pro-life, by the way, because he didn't take responsibility for me. And life is all about taking responsibility for things. And that's a big word with me. That's one of the reasons, that's probably the primary reason I'm in this race for governor, because I've always felt the importance of taking responsibility. And you, all of you do it in your own ways as well. And I congratulate all of you. And Roland and Jenny, I know you do it. You know, you're so generous and so giving to your communities. And you know what? Do you do it for yourself? No. I believe taking responsibility and doing things for others makes us human. It helps us. It makes us feel like we're doing something and like we're giving back and like we're of value. And I tell all my daughters that. You know, they all volunteer. They all participate in charitable work and other things. I haven't gotten them involved in politics yet. But, you know, being involved in politics is part of that as well, because it's our responsibility. We can't sit here and say someone else is going to do it. That's how I'm going to get elected as governor of this state. Your contributions, because your contributions today, as well as your future contributions you're going to make in the next 10 days, are going to help make a difference. You know, look at all the work that I'm doing here and all the money that I put in myself. And I thought about this very long and hard, and the difference that I can make in so many people's lives. If we could do this, when I'm elected governor of this state, we're going to turn around an education system that's now 47th, and we're going to make California's education #1 in the nation again. We're going to pay teachers like rock stars and baseball players based on how well they do. And our children deserve it. More charter schools, more homeschooling, more options for parents. The education system is totally political, and we need to make sure it's returned to the parents. Well, that's why I'm in this race. Well, let me tell you, this week we are going to hit $16 million raised in this race. Thank you all. By the way, $6 million of that is mine. And when I say that, I go home and sleep like a baby. I wake up every 2 hours and cry. You're welcome. You should be thanking my children. They're going to get less. But you know what? I was with a guy the other day, and he told me, he said, in 50 years, I'm going to be as rich as Bill Gates. And I looked at him and I said, really? Yeah, because he said, in 50 years, Gates and I will both be dead. Think about it. We're not going to take it with us. We're not going to take it with us. We're going to leave this world with the same amount we came into it with. And don't you think it's a good idea to use it to do something good? And that's why you're here. Thank you. So I'm going to ask you to double down. I'm going to ask you to do what you can in the next 10 days. The limit that each one of you, I know you're disappointed to hear there's a limit. The limit is $29,200 per person. Businesses can contribute as well, by the way. $29,200. Feel free to go the limit. But listen, we're going to use it wisely. If you're a registered Republican, by the way, if you're a registered Republican, you probably aren't seeing any of my ads. Because I don't want to pay to advertise to people who are already going to vote for me. I'm a true fiscal conservative. I subscribe to what Mike Ditka said about George Hallis. I throw around nickels like manhole covers. So I'm not going to waste any of your money because I know what it's like to earn it. And I treasure that. So please think about going the limit. Please think about increasing your donation. It's for your children. It's for the life of this state. It's for a great state, the most wonderful state in the union. The most fantastic place to live, the greatest weather, the greatest national beauty, the greatest people. Let's all together make this the Golden State once again. Thank you very much. Thank you. Should I take questions? I love taking questions, so if anybody has any questions, and before you start, the first thing I get rid of as governor is the sanctuary state. And the second thing I get rid of is that train in Central Valley. That's over budget, behind schedule, and obsolete already. And we're going to buy some helicopters. You know, CAL FIRE is flying helicopters to protect us that have bullet holes in them from Vietnam. That's how old the helicopters are that CAL FIRE is using. So, anyway, I just took away 3 of your best questions, and I wanted to do that. Yes? How bad is the unfunded liability for pensions? So bad. I mean, it makes Mount Everest look like a molehill. I mean, it really is. It's a huge mountain. You know, I'm on the board of the Hoover Institution. You probably heard of that at Stanford. And I've talked to the scholars there. And, you know, the trouble is the politicians have been lying to us all the way along. I've said so many times that Gavin Newsom and Jerry Brown should be in the cell next to Bernie Madoff. I mean, it's the same story. You know, they're lying to us. They haven't put the money away that they should have. It's $1 trillion is what the estimate is from the Hoover Institution. And that doesn't even count the retiree health care, because the retiree health care, they haven't put a dime away for that. And that's something like $150 billion. Well, don't worry. Don't walk out of here and book a flight to Nevada to check out real estate, okay? You know, we're gonna fix this problem. It's fixable. We got to get started now. We got to start putting money away, and we're gonna have to have some dialogue about what we do with new employees for the state. I mean, we're gonna have to have that discussion, and we're gonna have to talk about, you know, defined contribution versus defined benefit pension plans. I'm a CPA and a lawyer. I mean, I drafted pension plans for a living, so believe me, I'm very qualified to have that discussion. Another question. I can't see anything, so I don't know if there's anybody out here. Anybody have any other questions? Do I know Thomas Sowell? I feel like I do, but I've never met him. I read him. Yes, I know Victor Davis Hanson very well. Great scholar, very good guy. You know, and he's written about how California has declined. I mean, he lives near Fresno. He has a ranch there. And, you know, Victor Davis Hanson has written very eloquently about how there are two Californias. There are truly two Californias. There's the California in Menlo Park and Atherton and maybe, you know, West L.A., and then there's the rest of us that are, you know, barely scraping by. You know, the politicians have made this state virtually unaffordable for people. Virtually unaffordable and unlivable, and they're going to have to answer for that. But you know what? God's been good to us. You talk about a good God? God has been good to us because he's given me Gavin Newsom to run against. I mean, if you look in the dictionary under the word out-of-touch elitist, you see his picture. And he's even related to Nancy Pelosi. Thank you, that gentleman that pointed it out to me. He's even related to Nancy Pelosi. So, you know, you look at San Francisco. Do we want the rest of California to look like San Francisco? I call him the Thelma and Louise candidate, by the way. He's holding hands with Bernie Sanders as he drives over the cliff. He would raise your property taxes. He would double the state income tax. He's defending the gas tax. I don't know even how he runs, but I know how he runs because he's collected millions of dollars from these special interests. He is a walking, talking special interest, this guy. And I think the people of California are smarter than he thinks they are. I think the people look at these TV ads and they say, who's paying for all these ads, right? right? And what is he promising in return for those ads? He's promising a lot. He's promising a lot from you and your children and your grandchildren, and he's not going to be the governor. I'm going to be the next governor. Thank you very much.